Mayor Martell. Now, even with a broken leg, she drove like 2 hours to be here. And so we're really, really grateful for her to come and share her story. And I'm thrilled to have her. So please welcome from all the way over Ridge, Miss Mayor Martell.
That's why I brought all these shoved down in here. I have a whole pile of cleaning.
Oh, come on. A little more love in here, people. And this is not my story. This is a story that was given to me and gifted to you. I am an 18-year-old male. I've learned shocking things in the last 3 years. I've learned that I am a human being. I've learned that I have value and worth. I've learned that pain is an emotion, not a way of living. Most importantly, I'm letting my story be told to shine a light of hope to others. I am letting my story be told because it could be anybody's story. Here is my light, and here is my story. I was born abandoned. According to legend, I was either brought to my grandparents' tattered life, or I was saved from the state by them as a last resort, rescued from the hospital. I had a brother, also known as God to Jack, who was taken away by the courts, an uncle who was murdered by fringe family members, a grandmother who died of cancer, and Jack. They were all gone by the time I was 11, except for the worst one, Jack. I didn't get to say goodbyes. I wasn't allowed to feel or to mourn. The pain was so much. It became my normal. It was the only thing that was real, the only thing that was tangible. I had nowhere to put what I was feeling. Well, I could reach anger, though. That was allowed. In fact, that was nearly all I knew from Jack. I destroyed everything with such intensity the house barely stood. I burned with anger so hot it caught the trees, literally, into blazing monuments, testaments to my fury. Nobody heard me. Nobody stopped me. Nobody recognized me. God was gone, and I was all that was left. I became, over time, a non-entity. Nobody cared to listen to what I thought or felt. I was lost in the fabric of a quilt I was part of but didn't make. I became the tattered edge of distressed material, dangling with bad stitching attached to the furious Jack. My house was never silent. Rage filled the air with compulsive shrieks and blistering names that still sting my skin, my mind, and my emotions. Jack and I had no quiet conversations at the dinner table. There were no jokes told. The questions that I had of my losses went unanswered. Everything I did was bland and distasteful. 3 weeks after my grandmother, my mother figure, died, Jack moved Val into our house. Things became very different. At night, Jack gave me vodka, and Val gave me beer to put me to sleep. It wasn't long before Val started sneaking into my room, and the nightly abuse began. In an attempt to protect myself, I slept in a bed with knives and swords that I had collected. It didn't work. The smell of her drunken breath haunts me. I screamed out to be saved, but Jack never came to my rescue. I tried fighting against her, but my drunken, youthful self wasn't yet strong enough.
Hold on just a minute.
I told myself it was all a dream. Instead, I endured 3 years of her groping. 3 years of her checking me in the shower to see if I'd grown hair. You know, down there. You know, that abuse continued under blind eyes, and my screams fell on deaf ears. Nobody heard me. Nobody stopped what was happening to me. Nobody saw me. My family was gone, and I was all that was left.
Oh, I had to go search.
No, you stay right where Granny.
Boys I called my friends began to ask me to do things that I didn't understand, but I soon learned. I became an object to be used. Huffhead was the worst offender. He called me his friend, and I called him mine. In his eyes, I was a cut of meat, a used tissue to be discarded. but I always returned to him. Even knowing that nothing I did for him was ever good enough, I returned. He always demanded more and more from me. No matter how he abused me, I accepted it. The abuse was normal. I'd learned my lessons well. I was so desperate for his friendship that even after he and 4 of his friends gang raped me, I returned to him time and again. I didn't deserve to feel good. I didn't feel worthy of kindness or love. I didn't know this wasn't okay. How I was living was my normal. The threat of losing yet another person was far too much. I had no choice. I lost my identity and gave up control of myself. I deserved it. I no longer smiled because I didn't deserve to feel good. I felt guilty about my basic needs. I felt shame for eating, drinking, using the bathroom, smiling, laughing, joking. In other words, any reference to me being a human was enough to make me cringe. Dirt was more important than me. Everything and anything I did was constantly criticized. I was never good enough. I wasn't my brother, and Jack reminded me of this daily. Jack called me so many bad names that it caught me off guard. It sounded alien when anyone called me by my given name. I developed into an isolated zombie. Not the kind you see in movies, but just as much of a non-human. I became a vending machine that dispensed whatever was asked for. I was an object who didn't object to the abuse. I lived to serve in any capacity. In my mind, I could take what someone wanted and tear it up with my razor knives. I could expertly stab anyone who poked me with sticks or threw rocks at me. I screamed, "I hate you!" in my mind, but nobody heard me. Nobody stopped me. Nobody recognized me. I was gone, and yet I was all that was left. I started hearing voices after my brother left. Sometimes they get so loud that my mouth would speak their words, my body no longer my own. The voices became people that walked, talked, and acted differently while using my body. That's when the forgotten times began. I woke up in the strangest of places. In a driveway during a winter storm at Huffhead's house. In a shed, in a storm drain, in a different state. I began to lose hours and days worth of time. People would come up to me on the street acting like they knew me, calling me by different names, and I didn't let on that I had no idea who they were. Time no longer had meaning because I've lost so much of it so often. I was so traumatized by my life that I didn't realize I was a human being. I was so detached from reality that nothing seemed real except the pain. I tried sleeping for a year so I wouldn't have to feel what little seeped through the drugs I'd started doing. I'd mastered, as I was taught, to turn pain off like a light switch that kept turning itself back on. When I turned 15, my screams were loud enough to be heard by the courts. I got in trouble with the law, twice, in 2 months. I went to court to accept my fate with Jack and his daughter. And she was a woman that Jack called a lying, controlling bulldozer that ripped him off. I despised her at his word. After all was said and done, I was placed in Jack's daughter's custody. In the 3 years that I have been with her, I've learned what it's like to be happy, healthy, safe, and loved. I've learned that I am worth so much more than I ever imagined. I am grateful that the courts heard me. I am glad the judge stopped what was happening to me. I'm elated that they finally saw me. My spirit came home that day. I finally earned my freedom and another life to learn that I'm a pretty nifty fellow. What I endured is a crime of darkness that needs to be brought out into the open. There must be light shined into the darkness. Where there is light, the crimes of darkness cannot hide. The crime of abuse that is committed against another human being cannot be tolerated. Bringing these horrors into the light makes them harder to write off as someone else's problem. The emotional, physical, mental, and sexual abuse I suffered is a human problem, which makes it my human responsibility to shine the light of truth into the dark recesses. It is our human responsibility to speak out against abuse in any form. Let's not just placate one another with words. Let's move these words through the fabric of our daily lives, quilting together a network that shows a clear path to freedom. Let's shine the light and hold one another up in accountability for acting against abuse. Shine the light of compassion on one another. Remove the masks of silent victims while showing them that they, too, have a voice. The many forms of abuse end when we shine the light, our human light, into the darkness. Thank you from the 18-year-old man.